What comes to mind in terms of the role models that are around you in life? Some of us have very strong role models, some of us have few role models.
And I love inspiring others. And whoever has a dream who wants to do something similar, then I'm the one who loves to share some of my findings. I always had big dreams and big ambitions to go and change an entire organization. Like, let's just process improve everything. And I did that actually.
There's been a theme on these podcasts where I speak to entrepreneurs who have taken the risk to set up their own business, and it's not for everybody, but there are lots of people out there watching this and listening to this who maybe have this thing like you had when you were a child, of this entrepreneurial spirit or spark that's inside them, and yet they've not maybe made the leap yet into their own business. Hello, and welcome to Confessions of a Successful Leader, hosted by me, Andrew Tallents, the self-coaching expert. In each episode of the show, we hear the insightful confessions of a successful leader who wants to inspire others to live their professional and personal dreams. I am always keen to hear your feedback, particularly in relation to the kinds of leaders you would like me to invite onto the show in future. But for now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the rich insights from our special guest. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Confessions of a Successful Leader, hosted by me, Andrew Tallents, the self-coaching expert. I'm delighted that Sabine Matharu has joined me in the studio today. Sabine is a seasoned business startup and growth expert with over 20 years of coaching and consulting experience. As the founder and CEO of Reach for Greatness Limited, she specialises in supporting female entrepreneurs establish their online business and organisations with leadership and business consultancy. Sabine is also the driving force behind the Empowerment Portal, a collaborative platform she launched in 2020. This platform unites small business owners to enhance employee engagement, corporate culture, and well-being. An accomplished author with 3 books to her name, including Rise in Pursuit of Empowerment and Shift, A New Era Begins, Sabine is dedicated to empowering individuals and organisations to reach their full potential. Sabine, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Andrew, for having me here today.
Yeah, I know you've been very busy this week. I've been on various podcasts, so I appreciate you spending the time with us. Even though I've given the intro there, that's more about you professionally. So tell us a bit more holistically so the audience gets to know who you are a bit more.
Yeah, I think I would say I've not been an entrepreneur forever. I've actually come out of corporate, and I think as so many people, all of a sudden I had this awareness shift that I wanted to do something different, and that there was more to life than just a 9 to 5. And I think one of the other reasons why is I have family, and that's really, really important to me. And I wanted to see my kids grow up and be there every step of the way, and that's really fueled me to actually do what I do now. And I love inspiring others, and whoever has a dream who wants to do something similar, then I'm the one who loves to share some of my findings. And obviously it's not been plain sailing, and we can quite honestly talk about this today as well, because there are obstacles and there are risks, and I'm very happy to share today.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We've known each other a little while, and obviously we've met in person as well. So people just want to get a sense of what you're like outside of work as well. So when you're not working, I know you work very hard. What kind of interest do you have outside of work?
Yeah, so maybe you can hear a bit of an accent. I'm Austrian, born and bred, and I've been living in the UK for over 20 years now. Can't believe how time flies. And I still go back home. Just last week I went home for a bit of skiing, a bit of snow. So I love the mountains. In summer, obviously, I love hiking as well, and swimming. And absolutely, I love travel, seeing different cultures, and just going to different places, and where probably tourists are not always have access to. And I always find myself sort of going to these countries and making friends, and then they invite me to their homes, and I see sort of behind the scenes of tourism. So I'm always curious about people.
And I was going to say, it's nice to keep Austria a secret because a few of my friends love to go skiing in Austria. They say it's always a little bit quieter than going to France, so we won't tell too many people about that.
Yeah.
So let's hear a little bit about then. It starts in Austria, I don't know, but obviously our leadership is informed by a lot of our early life experiences. So what about your Sabine? What shaped your early leadership style from your childhood or teenage years?
Yeah, funny enough, I asked myself this very question when I wrote the third book, which is entitled Shift, A New Era Begins. And this idea came to me during the pandemic because obviously there was a big shift. We all lived in bubbles, and I felt a new era really began. And that question actually I answered for myself as I was going back to some childhood play. And it is really playful because I remember that I created some stationery together with my cousins, and we were sort of, just busy cutting things out. And the next thing we did is we would go on streets and we started to actually sell the stationery, just sort of little booklets that we had made. And people who were passing by, they were like kind of really weirdly looking at us. Obviously, it's just a bunch of kids sitting there by the side of the street trying to sell these booklets. But they gave us maybe 50p here and there, and we made some money. So I think that was sort of the early idea of entrepreneurship because, yeah, I felt like I can add value somehow. And back then it was such an innocent way. And I felt like, gosh, I was really, we were very creative. We didn't have any preconceptions or any worries or thinking about what if they think we're bonkers. Well, obviously, we realized afterwards maybe they did think we were bonkers. But back then we were just so innocent and we just went and did the thing. And I realized how come we adults can't be a little bit more like that and really forget all this, and because we overcomplicate things nowadays, we overthink, we procrastinate, we want to be perfect, and we have this mask on, especially when we work in corporate, for example. I've had my fair share, and I think I just learned just be a bit more, have a bit more fun, just a bit more lighthearted from time to time, and not everything has to be perfect.
I agree. And as you were growing up, what comes to mind in terms of the role models that were around you in life? Some of us have very strong role models, some of us have few role models. What was it like for you?
So I definitely grew up, um, well, I don't know, maybe back then it was conventional. Nowadays, well, maybe not so much, because both my parents actually had to work. It was hard work for them to actually pay the bills, and I remember that as well. And I'm now thinking, okay, what are my money beliefs nowadays around that as well? Because back then it was like money is hard to get, hard to earn. And so I grew up with my grandparents who lived next door, and they were amazing. I mean, they were just, I remember both of them. They inspired me. They were kind of like entrepreneurs. Obviously, they were already retired and they didn't have to go anywhere, so they took me shopping. My grandfather had a workshop and he was a carpenter, like a hobby carpenter, and I was just sewing, eating sawdust, making cakes of sawdust, doing all sorts of things with him in his workshop. So I think my grandparents taught me a lot about being free. We also lived on the bottom of a mountain, so that helped. I was very close to nature. I would go for walks a lot in the nearby woods and see the deers. And now I'm talking Sound of Music, right? Austria. It was like that, to be honest. I had a really nice childhood in that sense. I don't have such a sob story like, from rags to riches. But I do cherish it now, and obviously, yeah, skiing, that was another thing that I really enjoyed. But it just felt like really this freedom and carefree kind of environment. And I think my grandparents more so actually instilled this because my parents were not around that much.
Sure. And as you went into your first role in terms of work life, what was it you think you were drawing upon in terms of that childhood environment and that feeling of safety and seeing that freedom? What do you think was serving you at that point?
Yeah, so thinking back my first role, which was fresh. from university, I think I was a bit of a rebel. Actually, I went in there. I was like, big boots on already. I can change the world. So, just for context, my degree is business process and project management. So I always had big dreams and big ambitions to go and change an entire organization. Like, let's just process improve everything. And I did that actually. So I applied to my first job I was still actually studying as I had to do my diploma work and everything else. And but I just went in there in the interview and I'm like, yeah, I can do this, this, and this, and this for you, and we'll change that, that, and that. And then the CEO looked at me. He said, "You're amazing. Let's go and do it. Yeah, come in." So and it was so much fun because I again there was no boundaries. I didn't think, oh, what if this is not working? What if these guys have objections about change? That came later on in life when I made my my experiences of working on projects. But when I started, that wasn't actually there. It was pretty much this freedom and like, let's just go and create, and it's gonna all work out well.
So you were so lucky to have that environment, because many people, if they have that freedom as a child and are encouraged around that sort of entrepreneurial space, don't necessarily get that when they first go in. It's quite sort of constrained at times. So tell us a bit more about those first memories you have of when you started to notice some of the constraints and how that affected you in terms of your leadership style and what you had to change.
Yeah, in time, obviously, there were some roadblocks. I noticed people weren't that open minded to change. And that actually caused some curiosity in terms of me understanding human behavior. And this is probably where I kind of moved in a little bit more in terms of, you know, being a leadership consultant and doing some work around employee engagement and really understanding how people tick. And actually my diploma work was all around conflict management in teams, because that's when I first saw, hang on, not everyone's doing their job. There's some delays, or people are off sick, or they're sabotaging. What's going on? And I did this deep research with a team, and it turns out that a lot of these kind of obstacles came because they weren't clear around what's being expected from them, or they realized that it didn't have the skill set to actually perform a task. And again, it just informed, what is good leadership or what's expected of a leader. And in my own right, I was a leader back then, although I was a student doing some work experience, but I was still leading a project, and I was still responsible for people and for sharing my vision and for communicating clearly, and also setting expectations. So I was learning on the job, and I never believed that this whole human nut cannot be cracked. And I'm still in the belief that we can still crack it, because there are a couple of foundational things that we always need to remember when speaking to other humans. And nowadays, it kind of scares me when you think about AI, and people actually want to replace others by AI because human beings are too complicated and what have you, right? So yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about this, but that's probably a conversation for another day.
Absolutely. So as you progress through corporate life, what was it again you were learning about how you had to adapt your leadership style? I agree with you totally. We have to lead ourselves. We have to lead other people. Tell us about the next phase in terms of your learning.
So I think the next step or next phase was as a management consultant, and I had to be very adaptable because I was sent from A to B to C to many different places, different clients, different cultures, and there was lots of different project dynamics as well. So what did I learn? I mean, again, I just learned to be open minded and having open and honest conversations and involving people when I made decisions, or at least sharing the vision and checking in with them to see how they feel about these changes, or are there things that we could do differently or better. Because quite often when you come in as a consultant, yeah, you might have some tools in your toolbox, but the people who are doing the work in the field, they've been doing this for a long, long time, and they have probably a whole range of great ideas which they were never able to voice because nobody's really asked them the question or were open about it. And so I didn't start as a coach, and now I can call myself a coach. And I just very recently only did some sort of coaching certification. So at least I've got something, but I've been coaching for like 20 years and training, but I kind of fallen into this space, perhaps because of my personality, because maybe I feel like I'm responsible for people. I'm like a mom, because it's so many times people would just come and talk to me and tell me their deepest fears and secrets, and and open up and tell me things that they would not even tell their nearest and dearest. And I thought to myself, well, there's something there that I have as a quality, and I want to explore that more.
It really intrigued me at the start of this podcast where you said it's always not been straightforward. There's been challenges, obstacles, and it always is in all of our lives. So just tell us a bit about those. What have you found most challenging over the years?
I think obviously there were challenges with other teams and resources and conflicts around getting the right resources, because whatever project I landed in, it was seen as like an additional task. So I think negotiating with people and really creating the space, because back then it was like continuous improvement kind of spaces. And back then there wasn't that much of an awareness of how we can improve the whole work environment, how it will impact productivity. And now also back then, and we're talking over more than 10 years ago now, mental well-being, that was huge. When we were management consultants, nobody actually talked about this. We were just flying about the world, and we were supposed to be in planes after work, after doing a 10-hour work at a client site. We would just go on a plane in the evening and then arrive at midnight somewhere, and then wake up again at 6 o'clock in the morning and go to that client site. So yeah, there's just things which I think now we're more aware, we can talk about it. Does that answer the question? I can't remember exactly what we were
Yeah,
asking.
no, it does, but no, it does. But the follow up from that, then, and I remember those days and what they were like. And you're right, there wasn't this climate of talking about it; it was just expected, and it didn't matter what the impact was on individuals. So, what was the impact on you during that time, where it was as frenetic and difficult in that sense? What was the physical and mental effect on you?
Sorry, I had a bit of a glitch here, so I didn't hear the whole question.
So I was just saying, what was the physical and mental effects of those times that you were,
Yeah.
working like that hard? Yeah.
I think I was okay. I was okay because I was young. I didn't have a family. I think if I was in that environment right now, I would be suffering for sure, because I I did have to travel for another role quite extensively in just about 2 years ago, and my kids, they're now getting a bit older. That's fine, but I also get older myself, and I realize that when I have to travel extensively, my body is just not as sort of young and fit as I would like it to be, and you just need more time to to relax between those time. I mean, in terms of the content of the work, I never had a problem. Even now, as being self-employed, I don't have a moment where I want to do nothing. Actually, it's the opposite, because I'm so passionate about what I'm doing. I'm just go, 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 go all the time. As you just said, this is my fourth podcast this week. And I just enjoy doing it. And I think this is important, that you are in a job that you enjoy. And I don't think I've ever been, maybe once, that was like a temporary job. But otherwise, I've always been in roles which I really enjoyed doing. And I think that's what keeps you going. When you have a why, when you know what you're doing, how you add value, how you fit into a team, because belonging is a big thing as well. And quite often, yes, it could be organizational culture that isn't quite there, but I think it's also your own attitude and you working on yourself first rather than blaming the environment. I think that's a huge one. And remember, Andrew, I now work one to one also with teams, execs, who come to me with those kinds of challenges, who say, I'm not sure if I'm cut out to do this job. I'm not sure, maybe I should change roles. And then you really got to think, how am I behaving right now? What's my attitude? What's my mindset? So there's huge revelation around that as well. And that I had to work through myself, obviously, at times. But again, I think passion in doing something that you really love is really helping massively.
There's been a theme on these podcasts where I speak to entrepreneurs who have taken the risk to set up their own business. And it's not for everybody, but there are lots of people out there watching this and listening to this who maybe have this thing like you had when you were a child, of this entrepreneurial spirit or spark that's inside them, and yet they've not maybe made the leap yet into their own business. Just share, what was the trigger point for you? What was the catalyst for you to make that decision?
So for me personally, it was logistics. At first, because I had 2 children, very young children, I did go back to work, but every day I felt heartache. I went into the office, I felt a big heartache, and I thought, what am I actually doing here? That it was like I was walking through the office like a zombie, and I just knew it wasn't right anymore. And then logistically as well, in terms of childcare and financially, everything else. But I guess there was also this bigger drive to make a bigger impact in the world. And the first phrase that came to me, and that this was actually, I wanted to name my company according to this phrase, but then I saw someone else had registered their company under that name, so I couldn't use it. But for me, it was reach for more in life. But now my company is called Reach for Greatness. But again, it's that mission, isn't it? It's going for more in life rather than settling in mediocrity and settling into a box into which you may not even fit. And yes, it was a
And
bold decision.
well, that's what's going to come on to, because two children, and even though there were push factors in the sense of you're not enjoying it there anymore, it still takes courage to say, well, I'm actually going to now, sustain myself in my own ability and what I've done over these years. You've built all the experience. So again, it's really interesting when I speak to people who've done it, and you and I both done it, and yet we're here now thinking, well, actually, yeah, well, maybe it wasn't too bad to do it then, but it's still quite a difficult step, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And these steps are not to be underestimated. I mean, it's wonderful to have your own business. And this was my first thought. I'm my own boss. I can do my own things. I can work from wherever I want. But the dark side is, if you don't work, you're not going to get paid. So there is definitely this risk. And someone was asking me on another podcast, what would you recommend? Would you just hand in your notice, get started full time right away, or start a business whilst you're still at work? And here was my answer. I said, I think there's 2 types of people. The ones that want to just burn the bridges, quit their job, and get started. And that means that they can fully focus on going for it in business, and that's great. However, just remember that maybe the money won't flow straight away, because you got to actually put a lot of foundations in place first. You got to do, business development and be clear what you're going to be selling and all that kind of stuff. And there may be a period of time when there is no income. So can you afford that? And that's a question. How do you have a financial cushion, and also be aware of it and accept it, so that you don't get into the panic mode? Then there is this other person B, who is probably a bit more like less risky, and yeah, okay, let's just dip our toe into entrepreneurship and let me start something on the side while still having a secure income. The downside is that maybe there's not enough focus, because obviously they're still focusing on their full-time job, and or being in shift patterns, what have you, and then there is not much time to actually develop the business. So both of these models actually have their positives and the negatives, and neither one is right. I think it just has to feel right for yourself, and you need to understand what the advantages and the disadvantages are of each.
I know that we have similar roles in the sense of we have clients that come to us where we're enabling them to maintain a positivity about what they do and a belief in what they do. And of course, we all get triggered at times, and sometimes the imposter syndrome kicks in and we start to doubt ourselves in particular relationships. So just share a little bit, not what you do with your clients, we'll come to that, but for yourself, how do you actually maintain that positivity and self-belief when there are people around in environments that do trigger us sometimes to maybe let that doubt creep in?
Yeah. This is a constant battle. I'm very open about this. Even I mean, so we're in the era of social media where we see others. Especially, I'm working on two sides. I'm working with entrepreneurs as well, getting their business started and growing their businesses, and then also I'm going into corporate. So I have two business arms. But when I'm looking into the entrepreneurial space, there's all these people like, oh, I went from 0 to 7 figures in 7 months, all that kind of stuff. And you think, oh my gosh, why am I not there yet? So it's like comparing ourselves to someone, and we don't even know whether it was a truth or not, because anyone can say anything on social media. But then, we could compare ourselves with someone who's already been maybe 10 years doing stuff behind the scenes. They've built a team, they had some funding, and now they're running YouTube, Facebook ads, you name it, right? And I had the privilege to actually look behind the scenes of some of these businesses. And then for me, starting to understand, well, this is what I'm working with. I have a very small team. I'm not really, and actually, I don't want to go to those multiple 7 figures, and some people are happy with that. And so I think it's just to remember that we all have our own path, and that we are going our own journeys. And what I also noticed is, obviously for me, strategy is a lot, right? I do a lot of strategy consulting because I come from this kind of project management, process improvement type of background. So strategy is everything for me. But because I started to work with a lot of more spiritual entrepreneurs, well-being specialists, and people from those spaces, they start to talk to me about their programs, because one of my jobs is to understand what they do and then translate it into a marketing message and then help them launch or help them scale. And I thought to myself, well, actually, there's something about this. And I started to explore a bit more the spiritual world myself. And I understood that pure strategy will not get you to the goal. You need to combine it with mindset and even some spiritual work. And yes, I'm even talking about religious kind of work for myself right now to reconnect with God, because I believe there is something, a higher spirit there. And sometimes we just lose that trust. And I think imposter syndrome comes from losing trust in ourselves, in our abilities, and it causes a lot of challenges, a lot of issues like procrastination. And so we don't actually step into our true power just because we don't trust ourselves, and because we look at others and we should be there and we could be doing this and all that. I think we just have to cut out the noise and just focus on ourselves. That would be my advice. And believe in
Thank you.
ourselves and our capabilities.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it brings us to a piece now that I'm really looking forward to hearing about, because we've kept in touch for a few years, is what are you going to be in service of in the future? How can people support you in that or get in touch with you if they want to work with you?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I have two arms, my business. So for those who want to become more entrepreneurial, you can get in touch with me. I've got several programs for different levels. Um, for those that are in corporate and need some support around leadership, you can call me. We can, create some tailored programs for you, run some workshops around that. Um, I guess whatever I do, I think what's unique about my services when I'm thinking about that versus all the other coaches that are out there, I think I've gone through so many iterations, and I've seen so many things from both sides, from the corporate side, moving into entrepreneurship, and then help build businesses and scale businesses. So I've kind of seen the whole chain of events, from really starting or how it feels to be in corporate as well, all the way to the other extreme in terms of entrepreneurship.
And in terms of your personal dream now, I'm always believing that we as human beings have the ability to fulfill our dreams both personally and professionally. So what about you? If we look to the future for you, even though we know what you're going to be doing to help people, what about personally? What's your own dream?
Oh, much more travel, more time for travel. And again, this is another mission of mine to automate businesses, and I help my clients automate and really get the heavy lifting done, all the stuff that we don't always need to do, all these monotonous tasks, the foundational things. So I'm actually building that right now, so that in future I have more time and just leverage online communities, leverage the fact that I can work from anywhere in the world. And once the kids are a bit older, it might be that I will be having a beach laptop lifestyle. That's my ultimate dream.
Super. Mine too. So Sabine, I really appreciate you sharing your experiences with our audience today. I know that many of them that have been watching this, listening to this, will have been inspired by your story in terms of those younger years and obviously moving into the entrepreneurial journey that you've have had. And hopefully it's enabled them to reflect on their own leadership style, the fact that they are actually in charge of their own lives and can take responsibility for that, and hopefully how they might take a different approach to leading others as well. So thanks again for coming on the show, Sabine.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you for giving me opportunity. It's wonderful that we have this opportunity and this platform to actually share and share something that hopefully you can take away and just implement. As this is not theory, I was not talking about any book that I read. So this is real life examples, and my mantra is if you shine the light, you will actually light up the path for others as well. So thank you.
That's a lovely way to finish. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Confessions of a Successful Leader. You can access all previous episodes of the show at confessionsofaSuccessfulLeader.com. If you are interested in finding out more about conscious leadership and self-coaching, just type in Andrew Tallents into LinkedIn or your favorite browser, and you'll find my contact details and all the content that you need. Until next time, don't forget to stay present, curious, and above all, conscious.